If you like the Young Turks podcast, I think you'll love a lot of the podcasts on the TYT network. Old School, it's one of my favorites, one of the favorites for a lot of the listeners. Please check that out, subscribe, share it. That makes a big difference, and give it a 5-star rating. Thank you. All right, welcome to the Young Turks. Cenk, Uygur, Ana Kasparian with you guys. Hell of a show today. So in the second hour, Matt McGrory, he is in Orange is the New Black, so you might recognize him from that. Also, How to Get Away with Murder. He's gonna join us for the full second hour. Plus, I'm gonna do the conversation with him, talk about his career, and more importantly, a new progressive organization that he set up, which I love. And I will confront him about how he left Daya. I mean, come on. Get it together. All right. I mean, yes. Well, so that's apparently going to happen. All right. Don't miss tomorrow's show because there's a dramatic announcement about the Justice Democrats. Justice is coming, and now last week they announced the 7 current Justice Democrats. They've re-endorsed them. Well, this week we begin the new endorsements, and by definition, they're running against Democratic incumbents. Drums. So lots of drama coming your way. It's gonna be announced on the Young Turks tomorrow at the top of the show. Don't miss it. Comes the first announcement, one of many. So Washington, this time you buckle up and brace for impact. So that's coming up tomorrow. I won't pull a Trump because I have the announcement in my hand, but I will not wave it around so you can see it. That's literally what happened, and one of the stories we're gonna get to in a little bit. And Bernie Sanders gave a really important speech about democratic socialism. We're going to share that with you a little bit later. So far, the media coverage of it has been abysmal, as usual. So we're gonna actually show you what he said, because we do, apparently we do journalism here. And apparently it's a little bit better than the rest of the country, which is a bit stunning and embarrassing for them. Anyway, but before we get to Bernie Sanders and Trump's clownishness, interesting developments. So we asked you guys to be volunteers for the TYT Army and have you guys ask for presidential candidates to take the Progressive Pledge. Boy, do we have a spectacular case of it today. Boom, right out of the gate. So one of you guys asked Governor Inslee whether he would take the pledge, but at a lunch. And I remember watching the video for the first time going, wait, how is he at a lunch with Governor Inslee, a presidential candidate? And then I read further down the email, it turns out that's because he's a representative in New Hampshire. It's Representative Ryan Buchanan. In fact, he's the chair of the Concord Democrats. And he's in the TYT Army. So we're everywhere. So Governor Inslee's having a normal lunch. My guess is probably not overly challenged by any of the things that are happening. And all of a sudden, Representative Buchanan goes, I got a question for you. And by the way, and he was, as you'll see here, incredibly polite. I love the way he showed the camera the URL, tyt.com/pledge, and said, just like we talked about, hey, give him some time to read the pledge and then come back to you. Look at this, it's perfectly done.
So I have a question, and I have one thing that's kind of more of a call to action. So have you heard of the Progressive Pledge yet?
I have not heard of, I've taken many pledges in my life.
Okay, so if you pass that over to the governor. On the back, there's a website there. If you could just take a look at that, you don't have to answer right now, because obviously you haven't seen it yet.
I will do that.
Yeah, just if you let us know, let me know in about a week or so if you decide you want to take it.
I'd be happy to do that.
Thank you.
I love it. That's how you do it, brother. That's how you do it. He's from New Hampshire, Ward 6. That's in Concord. So the Battle of Concord has begun. So guess what? He's got access to all the candidates because he's a representative in New Hampshire. Can't wait. Can't wait. By the way, Representative Buchanan, you said, since I already asked Amy Klobuchar, you didn't have to. No, ask them all again, okay? For the ones who've signed, there's 3 candidates that have already signed: Bernie Sanders, Marianne Williamson, and Mike Gravel. But by the way, also for the ones that didn't, whether it's, and then we're honest about it and really clear about it, John Delaney, because he's just more conservative than in that regard. Andrew Yang, because he has slightly different ideas, which he thoroughly explained on the show, right? You don't have to ask them because they've already answered it, but everyone else go for it. And if you don't have to be a state representative to do it, you could find these candidates in many other contexts. In fact, you know how many volunteers we have now for the TYT Army? Okay, we have 16,105 signatures for the pledge and 7,208 volunteers.
Wow.
We are everywhere. So those volunteers right now, there's obviously a huge influx. Allison Hartson, General of the TYT Army, is organizing them, and already we're getting results like this. Already progressive groups are being asked, local state and legislators are being asked, etc. But also that means there's 16,000 people who say, if you don't agree with this pledge, then that means you don't agree with me. That's okay, but you're not getting my vote. That's 16,000 votes. Imagine if the number was 100,000 or 250,000. And then all of a sudden candidates can't get those votes unless they say, yeah, I agree with you guys, that's my policies. That is power, guys. So you keep it going, tyt.com/pledge. All you have to do is sign, it takes about 5 seconds. If you want to volunteer afterwards, great. And if all you want to do is participate and you don't want to do what Ryan Buchanan did there, no problem. If you do, fantastic. I love how quickly he did it, sent the video in, etc. By the way, we're gonna keep it going. Miami debates are coming. So like we did in Iowa, and we had a blast. Almost everyone who was there, at least everyone who talked to me, said it was fantastic. Not just because the speeches, but because you could see that you're having an effect. 3 candidates signed that day because the TYT Army was there, okay? And you got to meet each other, and it's a real community. So let's do it again in Miami. The debates are June 26th and 27th. That's 2 weeks from now. You can sign up to be there at tyt.com/rally. Okay, tyt.com/rally. And it's gonna be the Art Center for the Performing Arts. That's in downtown Miami. But don't worry about that. We'll get you exact details of where to meet up a little bit later. But for now, if you're gonna be anywhere near the area, that would be fantastic to have you out in full force there like we had in Iowa. And you too can make a giant impact like this. Thank you, Representative Ryan Buchanan. That was perfectly done.
All right, exciting news.
Fun, right?
Stuff's already happening.
Things are happening.
We like stuff. All right.
We like progressives.
You're gonna like this next story because it's about you.
Oh, yeah, well, now you got my attention.
All
Speaking
right.
of progressives.
Yeah. Well, yesterday, Cenk went on Chris Cuomo's show, Cuomo Primetime, I believe it's called.
Yes,
and
it is.
You debated Ana Navarro, which we're gonna get to her perspective on electoral politics in just a second. But first, just to give you a little tasty taste of the arguments that came from Cenk in this segment, let's take a look at the first video.
But is this the way that he courts that left during the primary process? That he lets everybody know, Cenk, this is what I'm gonna do. It's gonna be a battle to the bottom.
Yeah, so I agree with Anna that Trump is doing Biden a huge favor by attacking him. And that makes even people like me who are progressive rally to Biden's defense. But overall, I don't think that Biden is the better candidate against Trump because he's doing the same mistake that Hillary Clinton did. He's saying Trump's a bad guy, but we all know he's a bad guy. For the right wing, that's not the bug, that's the feature. No, you have to attack him on things that worked for him in 2016, being in favor of the average American worker, which he's not. He's a normal, lying, sniveling politician. And a progressive can make that case because we're for higher wages, we're for getting health care for your families, we're for substantive policy positions that are going to actually help your family in Michigan, Pennsylvania, et cetera. And what does Biden largely say? He does safe attacks against Trump. He's against what Trump said in Charlottesville. Oh, of course, we're all against that. But he doesn't attack him on policy positions, and he doesn't attack him where it hurts on how weak he is. And I think we need a stronger fighter to bring that message home. We don't want to make the same mistake we did in 2016, and he is very similar to Hillary Clinton.
So you have a little.
So the point that you kept making in this segment was that Biden is similar to Hillary Clinton. And I honestly haven't heard anyone in cable news make that point, and it's an important point to make because I see many similarities, especially when it comes to Biden hiding because he has the lead. When it comes to some of the questionable conservative components of his record, especially when it comes to the Hyde Amendment and then the flip-flop on the Hyde Amendment. I just see the Democratic Party, and I'm talking about the party as the establishment, kind of pushing for a candidate which would lead to very similar results, in my opinion, that we saw back in 2016.
I think that Biden might have misunderstood the Hyde Amendment, that he thought it was like hide and seek. So he's still hiding. So look, the reason they don't want him out there is because he keeps saying the things that he believes. They're not stumbles, they're not faux pas. He really is a conservative Democrat who believed in the Hyde Amendment, and that's why he's not challenging Trump on policy. Because there's a lot of that policy they actually agree on, not on the social issues. Let's, we're completely fair on that. So, but although Hyde Amendment is a social issue, and of course Trump goes further than Biden, again, clear on it. But on economic issues, there's not huge differences between the corporate Republicans and the corporate Democrats. In fact, that's what Biden's always bragging about. Oh my God, I'm bipartisan. I love to work with Republicans. Well, we don't like the results of you working with the Republicans. It's on Republican turf, which is what we're gonna get to next. But Anna, that's why I want to continue to give Chris Cuomo a lot of credit because he's having different voices on, right? And,
definitely.
Yeah, and you know why nobody's making the case that Biden's exactly like Hillary Clinton both in his policies and not wanting to address the issues? Because they're all in favor of Biden, right? Almost all the pundits and almost all the anchors certainly don't believe in Bernie Sanders. Everything is framed against him, and generally believe in the establishment candidates like Joe Biden. So it's an inconvenient fact for them that the guy that they think is more likable and more electable is just like the person who was less electable, so much so that she lost to Donald Trump.
So I want to hear a little more about why it's not a good strategy to work with Republicans. The bipartisan argument that we keep hearing from Biden, why is that a bad idea? Well, Cenk answers that question in this next clip.
All right, Bernie Sanders is obviously a progressive, but to sell the American people that you get things done, somebody's gonna convince them that we can do better than the polarization. Bernie Sanders is at the bottom of the list of working with the other side. Joe Biden's at the top in the field.
Yeah, so no, Chris, you're talking about a different time. So right now, if you want to work with Republicans, you got to work with Donald Trump. I got no interest in that. No Democrat has any interest in that. You got to work with Mitch McConnell, the heart of darkness. He's more corrupt than Donald Trump is. When Joe Biden talks about how Dick Cheney was a great vice president and left him more power and how he liked working with Strom Thurmond, I don't want any piece of that. I don't want to work with Republicans. I want to defeat them. And that is the essence of the problem with the Democratic Party. They are constantly reaching out to work with the Republicans on their turf. So if they want to do a deal where they do, for example, criminal justice reform, fine, great, I'll take it. I got no problem with that bipartisanship. But if they want to do more tax cuts for the rich, I do not want a corporate Democrat who is going to help them do that, because it's bad on policy, but it's also bad on politics. The country is incredibly progressive. 76% of the country says raise taxes on the rich, don't lower them. So we should pick someone that 3/4 of the country agrees with.
Okay, so my favorite line, and it's my favorite because I feel like I say it on the show all the time, is when you said, when you're talking about bipartisanship, you're talking about a different time. We're living in a different time. We're not living in the 1990s. We're not living in the 1980s. We're living in a different time. This is not like a great marriage, right? Where, yeah, you need to make some negotiation, some compromise, and you come to a good solution together. No, we're in a terrible, terrible marriage, right? We're on the verge of divorce. And you have Biden talking about, no, I'm gonna give you everything. You can cheat on me. Go ahead. Do whatever you want. Maybe that's a crazy analogy.
No, it's a perfectly good analogy, because in a marriage you're forced to compromise.
Right.
And so if you need to pass budget bills, yes, even today you still have to find some way of compromising and passing the budget. But overall, we're at a stalemate on any new policies.
Yes.
Because the Republicans will not agree to any policy that is even 1% progressive. So in order to get any agreement, you have to go to their side. No deal. And so when do you ever see on television a Democrat coming out strong and saying, no, I don't want bipartisanship. No, I don't want to do a deal with Mitch McConnell. I want to kick his ass.
Yes, I mean, you don't see that. You don't see that. And I think that the Democratic Party needs a fighter who's going to push for that. But more importantly, look, Brett Ehrlich made a great point today during our production meeting. He was like, look, if Biden keeps pushing this notion of bipartisanship, someone needs to remind him about what happened to Merrick Garland.
Yeah.
What happened to him, right? He's a Supreme Court nominee, and because of what McConnell did, he never even got an opportunity, he didn't even get a hearing.
Yeah, and remember that was after Obama famously said during the 2012 election that if he wins a second term, that the fever would break for the Republicans and they would cooperate with him. Instead, they did the exact opposite. They doubled down on their obstruction and broke every record there was on obstruction. So I can't believe Biden hasn't learned that lesson, because he's just set in his ways. His idea is, I do what Republicans tell me, and then I congratulate myself, and so does the rest of the media. So again, one more time, that's why I think CNN is doing something really interesting here by letting progressives on, and Cuomo's leading the way. So he's letting on people who are saying things that no one else on television is saying.
It was a fascinating exchange, and we're gonna get to Ana Navarro in just a second. But right before your segment, I was listening live because I was driving home, and Cuomo had Bill Maher on. Now, there are some serious issues that I disagree with Maher on, right? So he is a centrist and he believes that the majority of Democrats are centrist. But it was frustrating to hear that interview and not hear someone counter the points that he was making. So it was good to see you and Ana Navarro, exchange some ideas, right? The dial of ideas was turned to extra hot. And you're about to see that in this next clip. Here's Ana Navarro responding to you.
If you want a progressive agenda, really who you should be aiming your attacks at is not Joe Biden, it's Elizabeth Warren. The reason Joe Biden is in the front right now is because Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders are dividing that progressive vote amongst themselves. And this is very good for Biden, because we all learned from 2016 that Bernie Sanders is a stubborn old goat who's going to stay there till the bitter end, no matter what, even when it looks like he has no chance of winning. And so as long as Sanders and Warren are dividing that progressive vote, Joe Biden has got a niche all to himself. Listen, your problem is not Joe Biden. The people who support Joe Biden, their vote's not going to go to Bernie Sanders. Their vote's going to go to Pete Buttigieg, or their vote's going to go to Kamala Harris. For them, probably Bernie Sanders is not their second option.
So you didn't get an opportunity to respond to her because they ended the segment following her comments, but I want to give you an opportunity to respond now.
Yeah, and by the way, you can watch the full segment so you can see all of Anna's comments. I wish CNN would put it up and we could promote it, but so we put it up on tyt.com, so under special coverage, so you can watch the whole thing. But now finally I get to respond to Anna because we ran out of time. So look, when you call Bernie Sanders a stubborn old goat, half of that is completely wrong, and the other half is actually right, and part of the reason why we like him. So let me explain. When she said he didn't get out of the race when it was already over, I don't agree with that at all. It wasn't over till California, and then after California, he got out of the race, and some of his supporters were upset. But at that point, it was over. There was nothing to get upset at. And then he went and turned around, and I think he did 53 rallies for Hillary Clinton. So he helped in every imaginable way, and some of his supporters were upset about that. No, you got to fight against Donald Trump. He was right about that. He was right about how far to go, and then to turn around and try to make sure that Donald Trump lost. So that is revisionist history, what Ana Navarro is saying there, and it's just not true. On the other hand, when you say he's stubborn overall, yeah, that's true. But that's a good thing. Now, why is it a good thing? Because he says, these are my principles, and I don't care how many people in Washington and how many people inside the club and how many lobbyists and consultants tell me I'm wrong, I'm not gonna change. I'm for universal health care coverage. I was for that 40 years ago, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, and I'm for it now. I'm for higher wages, I'm for Green New Deal, etc., for fixing their environment, for all these issues that he's been fighting on. If he wasn't so stubborn, then they would have already moved him. They would have already made him a centrist. They would say, oh, come on, you're disrespecting your colleagues. You're the only one voting for these progressive policy ideas. Why don't you just be a team player? Well, him being a stubborn old goat is what got him here. And why people like him in the first place. Look, I haven't picked a candidate yet, but if you were going to vote based on that, you'd vote for the goat. Okay.
For sure. I mean, look, his consistency is pretty incredible because he has been on the record fighting for or defending policies before they were even considered popular, trendy, or reasonable, right? So we gave you the example of what he had said in a local paper back in 1972, prior to Roe v. Wade. He was pushing for reproductive rights for women, saying that the government should have absolutely no say over what a woman does with her body. That was not a popular position back in 1972, but he had that position and he aggressively shared that message and fought for it. And same goes for the Violence Against Women Act, even though he somehow still gets a bad rap from so-called women who I actually think they're political operatives who are just trying to smear him.
But they are in fact women, to be fair.
Sometimes they are women, yeah, definitely.
You said so-called women. But
I know. I shouldn't have said it that way.
So-called
feminist is a better way to put it. But what I'm trying to say is they keep trying to smear him as if he's somehow against people of color or he's against women, even though he's been fighting for civil rights. I mean, he's been fighting for reproductive rights. He's been fighting, more importantly, for economic justice, which impacts every single group in America. And so that consistency is the stubborn part of him, and I love it.
Yeah, so last couple of things here, because I want to address her saying that Bernie Sanders supporters should be attacking Elizabeth Warren. I don't agree with that. But first of all, on the stubbornness part, look, he was for marriage equality for gay Americans decades before Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, Joe Biden. They made such a big deal out of Joe Biden when he was vice president saying, hey, I think we should go towards marriage equality. Bernie Sanders had said that, 20, 30 years ago?
Yes.
So if you're gonna give Biden, and everybody was like, oh, Biden, I can't believe, in the year 2015, he's for marriage equality. Whoop-de-frickin-do. Look at the actual record. And then Bernie Sanders on civil rights, are you kidding me? He chained himself to an African-American woman. He led sit-ins in University of Chicago. They went and did task forces to expose racial discrimination in housing. He did any of that before he was a politician, okay? So that people's record are clear. And also, by the way, GOAT stands for greatest of all time. So they should be careful who they're calling a GOAT. So now on to Warren. Look, Ana Navarro, again, she's overall a smart person, interesting person to debate with here. She's a conservative, she's turned on Trump, but she is conservative. So of course she wants the Democrats to pick the single most conservative candidate they could possibly have. She's a Republican, right? So of course she's not gonna be favorable of progressives. She's gonna say pick someone closer to Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz. Well, we don't want that, we're progressives. So she's actually wrong. If you look at the polling, and her point is understandable and seemingly logical, but if you look at the polling, a lot of Biden supporters do go to Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, so let me give you some interesting findings. So you had mentioned that poll earlier. I did a little bit of research, and I want to kind of show you how, while very politically aware people think everything needs to be consistent. In reality, the majority of Americans are a hodgepodge of political ideologies, right? They support a hodgepodge of political policies. And so this kind of perfectly illustrates what I'm talking about. According to a YouGov poll that was recently done, 56% of voters considering Elizabeth Warren are also thinking about supporting another leading female candidate, California Senator Kamala Harris. About half are also considering Biden or Sanders or both. Now look, we understand the nuances and the differences between those candidates. To us, the differences are pretty stark. But when you look at this poll, you notice that, hey, just because someone might be voting for a progressive doesn't mean that they wouldn't end up voting for an establishment Democrat, or vice versa, should the person they initially supported not get the Democratic nomination.
The poll that I referred to is a couple of months old, but it clearly shows that a lot of Biden support would go to Bernie Sanders. And so you might think that that's strange, but voters oftentimes are strange. And a lot of it is name recognition as well, keeping it real. But look, this is the first time we have a couple of progressives in the race. That's a wonderful thing, not a bad thing. Yes, if you're just on Bernie Sanders' team, you would say, well, it's unfortunate that Elizabeth Warren's taking a lot of our points away from us. But if you're a progressive and you're on that team, you love that there are two strong progressives in the race. Let it sort itself out. And then we've got, at some point, when you go to vote, you're gonna have a decision to make. And you're gonna look at their policies, and you also should look at who's gonna fight the hardest to make sure those policies actually get enacted, and then let the dust settle where it may.
Yes, we got to take a break, but when we come back, we have some news, including Trump lying about striking a brand new secret deal with Mexico. We'll give you the details on that and more.
We need to talk about a relatively new show called the Republic, or UNFTR. As a Young Turks fan, you already know that the government, the media, and corporations are constantly peddling lies that serve the interests of the rich and powerful. But now there's a podcast dedicated to unraveling those lies, debunking the conventional wisdom. In each episode of On the Republic, or UNFTR, the host delves into a different historical episode or topic that's generally misunderstood or purposely obfuscated by the so-called powers that be. Featuring in-depth research, razor-sharp commentary, and just the right amount of vulgarity, the UNFTR podcast takes a sledgehammer to what you thought you knew about some of the nation's most sacred historical cows. But don't just take my word for it. The New York Times described UNFTR as consistently compelling and educational, aiming to challenge conventional wisdom and upend the historical narratives that were taught in school. For as the great philosopher Yoda once put it, you must unlearn what you have learned. And that's true whether you're in Jedi training or you're uprooting and exposing all the propaganda and disinformation you've been fed over the course of your lifetime. So search for UNFDR in your podcast app today and get ready to get informed, angered, and entertained all at the same time.
All right, back on the Young Turks. Got some member comments again today. Feel good about that. That's back today. Cray Cray Souffle says, I guess Joe's just, I know, it's already fun. I guess Joe's just biding his time. No, first of all.
Damn, Bart, cold-blooded.
I know, and that was quick too.
It's like he was ready for it.
I know.
What a hater.
And by the way, I've used that pun for years now, so I'm right there with you, Cray Cray Souffle. Maria,
by the way, that name alone. Awesome. You win.
Right. Are you tired of winning it? Maria says, have you asked Elizabeth Warren to sign the pledge? Yes. So we're awaiting word, and that is very interesting. So let's see what happens. I have no idea. So we will obviously let you know as soon as we know. Sartorial Narwhal says, I love seeing Cenk, Ana, and any other TYT host actually getting to voice a progressive perspective on the mainstream media. I wonder if Cenk's recent bookings are due to the Project Amplify at all, or if the bookers are just looking for progressive pundits as the primaries begin to heat up. No.
It's you've been fighting for it.
Yes, you guys made a huge difference as always. Project Amplify in that sense totally worked. No, we had to kick down the door to get in. And so look, like Dylan Ratigan did at MSNBC, Chris Cuomo at CNN is doing wonderful stuff by letting progressives on. But it was not an easy process, and Project Amplify definitely helped. So if you're a part of that, thank you. You got all of our voices on mainstream media. You're amazing, okay? Now, here more puns. I bathe in a very stable genius's tears says, Biden is Jekyll, his politics are Hyde.
Okay.
I like it. Kim R with an uncomfortable question for me. So Cenk, is Ana Kasparian going to be attending the Miami rally? Give the people what they want.
I agree with her. You should totally give people what they want. There are viewers. They support the show. We gotta give back.
I'm done with these comments, okay?
Okay. You guys, let's amplify that message.
All right, we'll see. No decision's been made yet. I have to go talk to the committee.
You guys are the committee, okay? Tell them what you want.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
All right,
everybody. Well, let's tyt.com/rally. We're going to see you in Miami. Okay, some of us are going to see you in Miami. Okay.
Let's go. We got to do the news.
We got to do the news. What's
All
next?
right. Donald Trump claims that he has struck a very secret deal with Mexico, which is why he has decided to call a press conference to share no details about this so-called secret deal. Take a look.
Do you have an agreement with Mexico to become a safe third country for asylum seekers?
That's the agreement that everybody says I don't have. So, no, because I'm going to let Mexico do the announcement at the right time. From Mexico, they want to go through it, but here's the agreement. It's a very simple agreement.
Wait till you see what happened. Okay.
So it ended up being an invoice for overdue loan payment charges. I'm just kidding, it's not. But I thought it could be because of course, right? Like anyone can pull any paper out of their pocket and be like, oh yeah, I got a deal. Yeah,
by the way,
who would have thought I got a deal? I got a deal. You did, okay.
Rush Limbaugh used to do that trick all the time back in the days when he was relevant. On the radio, he would say, ladies and gentlemen, I have just received, and he would do this with the paper. I've just received the fax. First of all, how do we know you're on the radio? Second of all, so what? Your buddy faxed you something. But that doesn't prove anything, right?
Yeah.
So I have a piece of paper, but as it turns out, it was the real piece of paper that the knucklehead shouldn't have waved in the sun because people took a picture of it and read it.
So a Washington Post photojournalist by the name of Haben Botsford took a photo of it, and of course was able to zoom in and get some of the information that was contained in that document. So I'm gonna read that to you in just a second. But first, I wanna go to the second clip of Trump talking about a so-called deal, which actually is nothing new. And I'll give you the details on that too. Take a look.
If they bring the numbers way down, we won't have to. But this is my option. It goes into effect when I want it to, but I have a lot of respect for the president of Mexico. I have a lot of respect for the people we dealt with, so I don't want to do that. And they have to go back to Congress to get that approved. This will go into effect, and it's my option. It's not Mexico's, but it will go into effect when Mexico tells me it's okay to release it.
Okay, so he made a bunch of stuff up. There were little kernels of truth there that I will point out to you in just a sec. But look, there hasn't been anything new negotiated, right? There is nothing new in the deal, which is why he keeps saying that it's a secret deal. Why would there be a secret deal? First of all, you think Trump, if there were any new components of this deal, you think Trump wouldn't go out there and like be boastful about it and give you all the details? Of course he would. He wouldn't call it a secret deal. He'd be telling everyone, right? He would go on an international tour to talk about how he finally accomplished the first deal of his presidency.
Yeah, so here's what happened instead. It turns out the Mexican government, even before this one was in place, so two different administrations in Mexico have had a backdoor diplomacy, if you will, with the Trump administration, with apparently the most important diplomat, not the Secretary of State, but Jared Kushner. So this is so sad. Trump doesn't use any of the official government. Like a dictator, he only uses his family because they're the ones who could be trusted, okay? So they reached out to Jared Kushner when Donald Trump started tweeting. He's like, oh, I'm gonna do these tariffs and stuff. And they're like, hey, Jared, the deal that we did a couple of months ago, can we just call that the new deal? And Kushner apparently was like, yeah, sure, that's fine.
And it worked.
It totally worked. But the thing is, Trump, and the part of the reason it worked is not because Trump is in on the game and he's like, oh, okay, well, this will look like I'm a tough guy and we still have the deal, but I'll get good hype and marketing out of it. No, he doesn't know. So they just put it in front of him. They're like, okay, here's the new deal. And he's like, oh yeah, look at me, I got a new secret deal. Now it's my option when we announce it, but Mexico's gonna announce it whenever they want, but it's my option. Okay, and here it is.
So I have to make a correction on a story that we actually reported on earlier when you weren't here, Cenk. So I had talked about how the Mexican military started using, the Mexican government started using its military at its southern border in an effort to give Trump what he wants so he doesn't slap them with these tariffs. It turns out that that is not something new. They had already started implementing that policy over a month ago, right? So that was my mistake, and so I want to take ownership of that. But yeah, that was not part of any type of new deal. They have not struck a new deal with Trump. Now, what did that paper say? I'm actually shocked to find that it did have something to do with the previously negotiated deal with Mexico. From what reporters were able to decipher, it said the following: if the United States determines at its discretion and after consultation with Mexico, after 45 calendar days that from the date of the issuance of the joint declaration that the measure adopted by the government of Mexico pursuant to the joint declaration have not sufficiently achieved results in addressing the flow of migrants to the southern border of the United States, the government of Mexico will take all necessary steps under the domestic law to bring the agreement into force with a view of ensuring that the agreement will enter into force within 45 days. I feel like it was purposely wordy to just confuse Trump. And make him think that there was something new in this deal.
No, when you're making international agreements, you have to be very precise with your language.
Right.
So that's why it's like that. Does Trump understand any of that? Of course not, right? But the kernel of truth that Anna was referring to is, we have 45 days to decide whether Mexico has complied enough with this agreement. And that is what that is. language is referring to. And if we say what you've done is not sufficient, then Mexico has to do new things. Although in that portion of the letter, it doesn't explain what the new things would be.
Right.
But by the way, by definition, that means that Mexico was already doing things to, and so, but again, Trump can't understand that. Look, to be fair.
Well, he saw 45 and he thought, oh, they're being complimentary toward me, it's 45.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's right, I'm number 45. Anyway, look, we're always fair. So I'm gonna give credit to Kushner here, who apparently had negotiated some sort of deal months ago. So, okay, that's something. And maybe, and it sounds like that might have been part of why they started doing the crackdown in the southern border. And so, and look, I don't think that applying pressure is something that never works. I don't believe that at all. I mean, we try to apply pressure to Democrats, corporate Democrats, Republicans, etc. Pressure can work as long as you have a strategy in place, you know how to execute that strategy, you know what your limits are, you know when you're bluffing and not bluffing, what happens if that bluff is called, and have that coordinated strategy. That's the problem with Trump, he never does. He just comes in with bluster, and then everybody else has to panic and figure out how to get the child to settle down and let the adults actually do a deal.
And look, we have to move on, but I do want to give you a quote from Mexico's foreign minister who responded to allegations that there was a new deal. His name is Marcelo Ebrard, and he says publicly that no, he denied that his country has reached an undisclosed immigration agreement with the United States. Mind you, when Trump goes out there and he says we've reached a secret deal, that doesn't only impact Americans, and it doesn't just spark their curiosity, it sparks the curiosity of Mexican citizens as well. So the foreign minister has to respond and be like, no, there is no new deal. Please, everybody relax. Ebrard again said that there was no additional deal beyond what both governments had announced on Friday of last week. Okay, so that's where we're at. With that said though, let's go to some other news. Representative Steve King is a noted racist. In fact, he's so racist that Donald Trump would not allow him to fly with him on Air Force One.
Wow, that's a whole nother level.
He is the most racist. I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing that Trump is like, I don't know, man, you're a little too toxic for me. So apparently,
man, if you're too toxic for Trump, wow. I didn't know the barrel had like a trap door where you can go even past the bottom of the barrel.
Right. Well, first of all, remember, Steve King was stripped of his committee assignments because of public statements that he made, one of which was to the New York Times, and he said, I don't understand what the big deal is with white nationalism. Why is that getting such a bad rap? And so there was a response by Republican lawmakers, which was kind of shocking. And look, that wasn't the only time Representative King got in trouble. I mean, we even have a compilation video that you should take a look at. Okay, it's video 3. So while they grab that, let me just say, Steve King was in Iowa with Republicans and Donald Trump was there as well. And so he wasn't the only Republican who asked to fly with the president on Air Force One. There were others, including Joni Ernst and also Deb Fischer of Nebraska. They were able to do it, but King was told, no, you can't.
No, this is definitely an official snub. There's no question about it. He's been snubbed. So let's show you the video.
We have to do something to increase our birth rate, or the vacuum that's created will be filled by people that don't believe in our values here in Western civilization.
For everyone who's a valedictorian, there's another 100 out there that they weigh 130 pounds and they've got calves the size of cantaloupes because they're hauling 75 pounds of marijuana across the desert. You cannot rebuild your civilization with somebody else's babies. You've got to keep your birth rate up, and that you need to teach your children your values, and in doing so, then you can grow your population.
Where are these contributions that have been made by these other categories of people that you're talking about? Where did any other subgroup of people contribute more to civilization?
That's unbelievable, man. So it was also unbelievable that he is still the congressman from the 4th district in Iowa. So, by the way, J.D. Scholten ran against him last time around. It was a 3-point race, so it was incredibly close. That used to be a very red district. But even some of the Republicans and independents in that district are like, man, this is a bridge too far. J.D. Scholten was at our first Revolution rally in Iowa, and he gave a great speech about how progressives serve rural areas way better than conservatives do, and look out for those farmers and other people. But in terms of Steve King, he says, no, I'm not backing down. I'm gonna keep running in that district. They're gonna keep electing me. But what you have to understand, and Steve King doesn't understand, is that a lot of people don't know what you know. So if you watch this show regularly, you've heard the cantaloupe calves line before. Now all the other ones are maybe more atrocious, but the cantaloupe calves is hilarious and preposterous and so weirdly racist. Yeah. But I was in Iowa just this past weekend, and I talked to a number of people, and none of them had heard of cantaloupe calves. So that's the thing. You just, if they don't get online news, they barely see it on TV. They barely see it in the newspapers. That's ever, so they might have some vague sense that people are calling Steve King racist, but likely they haven't seen any of the things he said that is actually racist. So they might even think like, oh, he's being unfair, this political correctness. When the guy's on all over TV going, white people are awesome, and I don't know any other race that's ever produced anything good. Right. Right? So that's why he got the snub.
We got to take a break, but when we come back, we have clips of Bernie Sanders' speech on socialism today. It's pretty powerful, and you don't want to miss it. So come back, we have that for you.
At TYT, we frequently talk about all the ways that big tech companies are taking control of our online lives, constantly monitoring us and storing and selling our data. But that doesn't mean we have to let them. It's possible to stay anonymous online and hide your data from the prying eyes of big tech. And one of the best ways is with ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN hides your IP address, making your activity more difficult to trace and sell to advertisers. ExpressVPN also encrypts 100% of your network data to protect you from eavesdroppers and cyber criminals. And it's also easy to install. A single mouse click protects all your devices. But listen, guys, this is important. ExpressVPN is rated #1 by CNET and Wired magazine. So take back control of your life online and secure your data with a top VPN solution available, ExpressVPN. And if you go to expressvpn.com/TYT, you can get 3 extra months for free with this exclusive link just for TYT fans. That's expressvpn.com/TYT. Check it out today.
You and more.
We hope you're enjoying this free clip from the Young Turks. If you want to get the whole show and more exclusive content while supporting independent media, become a member at tyt.com/join today. In the meantime, enjoy this free segment. All right, back on the Young Turks. Lucy07 writes in the member section, when Cenk does his Trump impression, there's a little Rodney Dangerfield mixed in. Whoa, I don't get any respect, no respect around here.
Who's that?
See, because
I tell you, I don't get no respect at all.
No.
That was a thing at some time.
Man, how did he have it that quick? I don't know. So, yes, you'd be amazed at what people don't know. He's an old school comedian.
Oh, nice, okay.
Okay, well, he's now quite dead. That's because he doesn't get any respect. Noam Chomsky says, did you all see that Congress voted to hold Barr in contempt? We did, so that was right before the show began, so we don't have that for you guys. Speaking of which, let me just tell you guys real quick. The Bernie Sanders speech was fairly quick to show, close to showtime as well. So we're gonna give you the Bernie Sanders speech in the post game, okay? Now, that doesn't mean we won't share it with the rest of the world, we will, but members will get to see it first. That'll be in the 3rd hour of the Young Turks, okay? So hang in there, and if you're a member, you're gonna get to see it today, okay?
Just really quick, inside baseball for anyone who might be angry that it's working out this way. He had done his speech way too close to showtime, and we want to make sure it's produced perfectly for you guys so we don't have any missteps or anything while we cover it. That's why it's going to be in the post-game show. It's not to snub anyone. Everyone will have access to it once it's done.
Yeah, as tyt.com/trial to become a Young Turks member. You can try it for a week free, so you can actually watch it today for free if you want. in the third hour, and then we'll put it up later for everybody else. All right, David says, if Ana gets to go to Miami, I pledge to stay a member for the rest of my life, and you can hold me to that.
That's it, Cenk.
All right, still not.
He lives like a capitalist every single day, Cenk. I don't know why I said that. It just felt like it was right.
He lives like a member every single day, and he will for the rest of his life if you go to Miami. Okay, Eddie O'Donnell says, that's how we know there are no aliens at Area 51 or anywhere. Trump couldn't keep that secret. Such a good point. They told him that. There's no way they would tell him that, right? If they tell, let me tell you something. Okay, the aliens came here to see me. They were waiting for me.
Oh my God.
And it turns out they're orange, just like me. Anyway, and last one, Cool Burn says, who's on Old School tonight? Ben and I are on Old School tonight. That's also for the members. You can see the first half hour on YouTube. Over the weekend, you could see a full hour podcast or hear a full hour podcast, but only the members get the full hour and a half plus video, plus you can see it live tonight. So tyt.com/trial to become a member.
Look, I love Old School with Cenk and Ben. It is my old time favorite, but you have some competition. 3 words, JR, Brooke, Brett.
Really, they did an Old School?
Oh my God,
that was on fire?
One of the best Old Schools. It was so good and so much fun. Anyway, just have to put that out there.
All right, well, all you members can see all the old Schools as well, so I can go back and watch that too. Like we said, it's if you want to try it out for a week for free, this is a good time to do it because of all these things that are coming up.
Right.
And all the CNN clips are on tyt.com as well. And I'm gonna I'll promise it right now. For the members, we'll also put up Bernie's full speech, okay? So you can check that out as well, tyt.com. All right, what's next?
Look, the only reason why you're able to put up Bernie's whole speech so our members can enjoy it is because we have a website. Websites make magical things come true, right? And so if you want to create and build your own website, just go to squarespace.com/tyt. You get a little discount, okay? You get 10% off if you go to that specific URL. And the best part about Squarespace for me, as someone who's not really like that tech savvy, is how simple it is. Lots of templates, it's very self-explanatory. Check it out. All right, let's get to the news.
100 years after slavery, the black community was doing better. We were going up, up, up.
That was Candace Owens arguing that, hey, it is socialism that has led to the terrible economic situation for people of color. And the debate that she had was with Cornel West, as you might have seen in that video. Laura Ingraham hosted this debate segment. And Candace Owens said a lot of really dumb things throughout. Let's take a look.
Come on,
That's not
100
socialist.
years after slavery, the black community was doing better. We were going up, up, up. Then suddenly they socialized our community via welfare policies and the black community started going down, down, down. And you're sitting here supporting a candidate that is advocating for making that on a larger scale. He's saying, we're not just gonna do it to the black community, we're gonna do it to every community in America. You know his policies do not work. You know that socialism has led to more deaths than anything else in the last 100 years.
So the talking point, I know. So the talking point that Candace Owens has been pushing, she's no longer with Turning Point USA. But when she was at Turning Point USA, she was paid to say that it is not systemic racism that leads to, the disparity in wealth and income between, white individuals and black individuals in America. It's because of socialist policies. It's because of welfare that the black community is being held down. Now, first of all, that makes no sense. We know, and we're gonna debunk that in just a second. But think about who funds Turning Point USA. They're the very corporate donors that corrupt our politicians to push for deregulation, to push for tax cuts. So look, they're very savvy. It is a multi-pronged approach. It doesn't just stop at corrupting politicians. They attempt to corrupt education. They attempt to corrupt young minds, which is what's happening with Turning Point USA. And it's terrible and it's disgusting because systemic racism is an issue. We've given you multiple examples of that throughout the years. And just hearing her try to talk about history is hilarious, especially considering what she had to say about white nationalism in the past.
Okay.
When you think about whenever we say nationalism, the first thing people think about, at least in America, is Hitler. He was a national socialist, but if Hitler just wanted to make Germany great and have things run well, okay, fine. The problem is that he had dreams outside of Germany. He wanted to globalize. He wanted everybody to be German. And thinking about how it could go bad down the line, I don't really have an issue with nationalism. I really don't.
What they won't tell you about the statistics and the rise of white nationalism is that they've simply changed the data set points by widening the definition of hate crimes and upping the number of reporting agencies that are able to report on them. Black conservatives, when they have the audacity to think for themselves and become educated about our history and the myth of things like the Southern Switch and the Southern Strategy, which never happened.
Yeah, okay. So look, people like Candace Owens lead pathetic lives because they're paid to sell their own identity out. And so that's just the reality of it, because none of the things that she says is true. And so I guess they get paid handsomely. I don't know how they sleep at night. So let's begin to correct the things that she said. First of all, she, on 2 different occasions there, supported white nationalism, which has murdered black people in this country for hundreds of years. It was white supremacy, the idea of that drove slavery, Jim Crow, the Klan, etc. Now you have a African-American woman paid to defend white nationalism. That is disgusting, okay? And then in the earlier clip, she talked about, African-Americans were doing fine for 100 years after slavery until welfare came to help them. Really, they were doing fine? How about the lynchings? How about the Klan? How about the bombings of the churches where little girls were massacred? You think they were doing fine? How about when they didn't allow African Americans to vote, even though they had the right to vote? That's what the 1964 Civil Rights Act and Voting Rights Act were all about. So the horrible years where they're being oppressed against the law and against the Constitution, you call the good years. And then when someone actually tries to help the African American community, you say, that's when things started to go down, down, down. I mean, it's so perverse. And by the way,
she didn't even mention Jim Crow laws, right?
Of course.
Yeah, she didn't mention any of the stuff that actually matters.
I don't know if she's just pathetically stupid and doesn't know any history at all, or she knows the history of how brutal white nationalism and supremacy has been to African Americans and thinks, I don't care at all. Where's my money? The only color I see is green. You want me to sell out black people and lie over and over and over again about how wonderful white people were to us as they were lynching us in the South? Great, where's my check? I'm in, right? None of it is backed by facts. I mean, listen to what she said about the Nazis. She said it would have been fine if they just stayed in Germany. Really? If they just murdered all the Jews and the Poles and the minorities and the LGBT community and the Roma and all those people inside Germany, that would have been fine? That would have been fine. Do you know what Hitler did to African American athletes? Of course you don't, because you're a moron that doesn't know a goddamn thing, okay? And so now she says, well, look, if they just made the trains run on time inside Germany, everything would have been hunky-dory. It's just absolutely grotesque.
And look, the heart of the conversation or the debate was about socialism and how destructive it is. So she attempted to fearmonger about socialism. And look, Cornel West, you should watch the full debate because he did such a fantastic job rebutting her and giving real evidence and logic to her arguments. But one thing that really stood out to me was, okay, so you don't like welfare programs, you don't like any type of government assistance, then maybe you should speak out against Donald Trump wanting to give farmers $15 billion in subsidies because of the damage he's done as a result of this trade war to these farmers. By the way, the majority of this money, I would argue, doesn't even go to the small town farmers who are the most affected. Usually it goes to some of these massive corporate farms. But anyway, my point is, what do you think about that? How come there's never any anger about that? There's never any pushback by the right wing when it comes to that?
So I want to just double down on that because Bernie Sanders gave a speech today that actually highlighted that difference. So he says, I'm in favor of democratic socialism. What is that? That's social safety net programs like Social Security and Medicare. Now, are those things, did they kill millions of people as Candace Owens says? No, they actually saved people's lives. Is that somewhere else? No, it's right here in America. So Social Security, what is a poll at? 84%. In fact, that was an old poll. Recent polls said 87% of Americans, including the overwhelming majority of Republicans, say they would increase taxes on the rich to make sure that they protect Social Security. So it's incredibly popular. It's literally the most popular program in America. And what is that? That's democratic socialism. okay? Medicare, polled at 77%, it might be higher now. Democratic socialism. Firefighters, yes, firefighters used to be privatized until they realized, oh, if you save the rich guy's house, but you don't save the middle class guy's house, it turns out the fire spreads, just like disease. So that's what FDR did, that's what we do here, and it didn't kill anybody. What Mao did, Stalin did, had nothing to do with any of that. They were brutal dictators. So now, what is corporate socialism, what Anna's referring to? Bank bailouts. Tax subsidies. You know that the oil companies are still getting billions of dollars in subsidies. For what? For what? They're the most profitable companies in the world. Why should they be getting subsidies? That is socialism for the rich. And Candace Owens doesn't mind any of that. She's like, did the check clear? Then I love corporate socialism. That's how she makes a living. That's what she's paid to tell these horrible lies to deceive people because of corporate socialism. Ironically, she's also the benefactor of that. She doesn't do anything productive for a living.
That's right.
Okay, she just takes checks and then says, what do you need me to say? I'm here for you. And so she lives like a socialist every day, Cenk. Okay, but it's a corporate socialist.
And since she has such strong words against socialism and these, government safety net programs, I just want to note that a Harvard study done in 2009 indicated that 45,000 Americans die every single year because of our terrible capitalistic healthcare system. We also have this huge issue where, capitalism has led to private prisons where now there's a profit motive to imprison as many people as humanly possible and to pass these insane tough on crime laws. So has that had any impact on the Black community in America? Because I believe it has, but you don't want to talk about that. That's the type of capitalism you love, right?
So look, it's not to say that you can't ever be a Black conservative. If you care about balancing budgets, if you care about, hey, did the SNAP program go too far and create some degree of dependency, although it did save and help millions of kids get food assistance, et cetera, so they don't starve to death. Well, we can have an intelligent conversation about that. But an intelligent conversation is not Candace Owens telling you that the period of lynchings in America was wonderful for African Americans, and that if the Germans had just murdered Jews inside of Germany, that everything would have been great. No, she is the definition of a sellout.
We will be back after the break.
Thanks for listening to the full episode of the Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.